What's up, you guys? On today's channel, what we'll be doing is the effects of NIRP, negative interest rate policies, and ZIRP on the NAV, the net asset value, okay? So what I'll be trying to explain here is very important to understand this information, because you'll understand why the monetary policies are decreased to increase the value of assets, okay? So first of all, you need to look at a balance sheet. And how is a balance comprised of? It's you have the financing side and you have the assets. And how we determine the value of assets is the returns that investors want. Let's say investors are willing to have a 5% return. What would happen is that you would just divide 0.05 by 1, and this will give a 20 PE, okay? Because if people are willing to have 5% return on the asset, assuming that it was financed by 100% capital, then the PE multiple, you would have to pay 20 times the value of revenues or profits to get that asset. Now let's look at here, the WACC, the weighted average cost of capital, will be equal to the NAV value, the net asset value. What is comprised of the WACC? The WACC is the weighted average cost of capital. It's all the cost of capital to structure a business. Let's say that a business is structured at 80% debt and 20% capital. So what would happen in this example is that you would have 20% of equity plus 0.80%, let's say it's long-term obligations at 3%. So we multiply the ponderation of 80% times 3% minus the taxes. 1 minus taxes. So as you can imagine, using debt, the more you use debt, the higher the net asset value becomes. And when the federal bank or the central banks are lowering interest rates, what happens is that not only does it increase the value of debt that a business takes on, it also increases the value of assets. Let's look at an example, okay? Let's say you have, in this example, the return of the business is 5%. So your NAV is a 5% return, and we have 20% equity, and we have, say, 80% debt. Let's say after taxes, this cost of capital is around 2% times 0.80%, which would be around 1.6%, 0.0x. Okay, I'm doing mental calculations. This doesn't mean that it's 100% right. So here we have 0.34 divided by 20x. So you would multiply this number by 5. So you have 0.64 plus 0.64 plus your 0.034. You would have 12.8 plus 3.4. So 16.2%. The return on your ROI in this example, X, is equal to your ROI. So the simple fact that when you decrease the cost of debt, let's say you decrease your cost of debt to 1%, what's going to happen in this example? You were already asking 6.2% plus 1%, and you're financing this at it's going to be equal, let's say, 0.20 times 16.2. We already know that this number is about 0.034 plus 1%. So this brings us to a 4.4%. So now your new asset value is not going to be divided by 0.05. It's going to be divided by 0.44, which is going to give you about 22. So if you had $1 million before, now you'd have about 10% more. So 1 million. The effect of just lowering interest rates by a little bit. Like in this example, we just reduced the interest rates by 0.6% and it added 100K in value. You have the same amount of debt. Let's say in this example you had a 1 million. This means you had 800K of debt. You had 200K of equity. Equity is your stocks, the number of stocks, the number of shares. If there's only one stock in the business, this stock is worth $200,000. Now, we've added $100,000 of net asset value to the business. So this means that the shares, just by the simple fact that the policies, monetary policies have decreased their interest, they brought it down by 0.6%, and this shareholder, which only owns one stock, is now worth $300,000. So every time they decrease the interest rates and they go into negative interest rates, we could see that this can become very drastic, because let's say they go down to 0. So if they go down to 0 and you have 0.05% at 20, so you're going to have to multiply your return on ROI, because remember, this becomes 0 and you go 0.05 divided by 0.20. It's the same as if you were to multiply that by 5, because 1 divided by 0.20 is 5. So 0.05 times 5 is a ROE of 25. So you're receiving 25%. Just the simple fact that they went from 1.6% to 0%, your ROI, return on investment, went from having a, let's say, a 16.2% to 25%. So if investors are seeking 16.2%, what's going to happen to this new asset value? It's not going to be divided by 0.05. It's going to be divided by about 0.03. So 0.03, if you divide 1 divided by 0.03, that gives you like a 33.33 PE ratio. So this new value, you just essentially upgraded the value, the NAV value, to 1.5 million approximately. Like you can't say 100% because the 33 on 20 is about 50%, a little bit more, 60%. So 60%, 1.6 million. You've just added 1.6 million, but you still have $800,000 of debt. Now you're bringing it down, you're bringing it up to 1.6 million in assets. If you take 1.6 million minus 800,000, that's $600,000. Remember, the shareholder only has one stock. $600,000 divided by one stock. The simple fact that they went from 1.6%, remember, the last few months they took interest rates down by 1.5%. So this investor had $200,000 of equity and it's now worth $600,000. Okay, this has a drastic effect because a lot of people say, oh, the markets are overvalued and stuff like that. You can't really say anything like that because what you have to look at is the WACC and how the business is structured. And when you know how the business is structured and you know the cost of capital and you know that the business is able to produce cash flow, then you see that it's very easy to get 25%. Then the asset is going to create, is going to inflate, is going to go up to 1.6 million for you to make 16.2% again. And that's where the real wealth is being created. So hopefully you got value of this video. I know it's kind of complicated, but when you start to understand this formula, it's the same thing, okay? The NAV is also your cap rate. Remember, okay? NAV, cap rate. Your cap rate is going to be equal to the WACC. A lot of people say, where does the WACC or the capitalization rate come from? Well, it comes from the WACC. It comes from how much is the cost of the capital. And then you, essentially what you do is you take your future cash flows, you divide it by the cap, not the cap rate, but the actualization, what what investors are seeking. In this example, it would be around 5%. You do that to infinity or more than 15 years, and it adds up to one number and it gives you your cap rate, okay? So if you have any questions about this video, I know I've put in a lot of information, a lot of numbers, but I truly believe that if you can understand this and you could put it all together, then you'll see the world in another angle, and then you'll understand why real estate is so powerful. Because remember, when interest rates go down, you essentially can almost print money. This is what Robert Kiyosaki is talking about. When there's a crash, he's able to refinance his properties, take out all this money, because remember, $600,000 or that $400,000 of new added money, you can take it out, refinance, and buy other properties and increase your ROI. And in some cases, like in this example, the person had only invested $200,000 and now he pulled out $400,000. This means he has $0 in this equity. What is the ROI after the refinancing? Infinity. Because if you don't have any money in a deal, if you take 1 divided by 0, it's equal to infinity. A lot of people have a hard time to grasp their mind around that. But if you have $0 in a deal, then you're making infinite money on that deal. Alright? So if you like this kind of information, like, subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the next video. Thank you. Have a good day.